Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here, and I want to talk to you guys about arching in the bench press. So if you've ever used the internet or social media, you've definitely seen videos of lifters, power lifters setting up with some level of arch, from moderate to maybe very extreme in some cases. And if you've seen that, you've also probably seen comments like these. Comments where people are, "Oh my God, you're going to hurt your back," or "That's cheating," or "How you're never going to develop your chest like that." And 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, those videos are on competitive female powerlifters videos, and they're being made by males. And I see things they'll say like, "I recently read an article, then blah blah blah, technique advice for you," or "My friend who's a doctor told me that blah 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 is bad for your back." Well, if your friend who's a doctor is saying that, then your friend who's a doctor doesn't even lift. All right, so if you're not an expert, if you're not a high-level competitor or coach, physical therapist, chiropractor, orthopedic surgeon, they probably don't want to hear your comments. And those comments aren't having the effect that I think a lot of people are making them for, because they think that these, hot, strong female powerlifters are going to be like, "Oh, that was a great piece of advice from that random guy on Instagram. He's so smart and thoughtful. Maybe I'll go out with him." That's not going to happen. Right? Why is nobody making those same kind of comments on Kirill Saryachev's bench press videos? He sets up with an arch. You don't see, "Oh my God, Kirill, you're going to hurt your back," or "Someone should really teach this guy how to bench press. He's not developing his chest fully." Said no one ever. All right. So if you're not an expert, a true expert, a high-level competitor, a great coach, a medical professional, then I think all those girls would really appreciate it if you just save your comments for yourself. Because I know that you might have read an article or had a friend who said, but just save it. Alright? So what we've done today is brought in some real experts to talk about arching in the bench press. What makes a good arch, what maybe makes a bad arch, how the arch is safe, alright, how it's helping protect your shoulders, why the arch is not cheating in competition, and how it's not limiting the development of your chest, your pecs. So we have Dr. Quinn Hennock, Doctor of Physical Therapy from clinicalathlete.com, and Dr. Mike Israetel, PhD in Sport Physiology from Renaissance Periodization, here to share some of their expertise with you.
What's up, guys? Dr. Quinn Hennock here of Clinical Athlete. We're here with Marissa Inda, and we're going to talk about the arch in the bench press, the good, the bad, and dispel some myths. So first of all, we always get some comments when we see pictures of bench pressers with a huge arch in the lower back. People are like, "Oh my God, they're going to break their back." Well, the lower back is made for a lot of movement in the sagittal plane, so flexion and extension. It's actually designed for a lot of motion there. So go ahead and lay on your stomach, Marissa, just as a quick demonstration, and do what some people call the seal stretch or the prone cobra. Any issue with that? No problem whatsoever. Okay, so just realize that the spine can extend. You're not actually going to break your back as long as we don't have any pre-existing issues. Go ahead and stand up for me. When we talk about the dangers of an arch, it's compression force or axial loading, which is straight compression, and shear, which is a force that's trying to offset the vertebrae. And those two things we're trying to avoid in lifting and can be a danger with an over arch. So go and put your arms over your head, Marissa, and then reenact the arch that you would have in a bench press. And so if Marissa was going to overhead press like this, it would be an issue because we have a compressive force, we have axial load plus shear, okay, like movement under load, change in position of the spine. Now do like a bench or a deadlift lockout. So pretend you're locking out the deadlift and then arch your back like you would in a bench press. Again, now we have an issue because we have an axial compressive load and a shear force going into the spine. However, in a bench press, go ahead and lay on the bench and set up. We're mitigating axial load or compressive force because the weight is perpendicular to the plane of the spine. Okay, so we're not getting compression of the spine here, and the bar is right over the anchor point, which is the shoulder. So we're mitigating compressive load. Go ahead and rack it. But keep that position. We're also mitigating shear force because even though we have an arch, we're anchored with the glutes on the bench. And so this is where Marissa starts, and there's not a whole lot of change from this position when she goes to bench. There may be some leg drive that causes a little movement, but it's negligible. Okay, so compressive load is mitigated, shear force is mitigated, and and you saw how much range of motion that she possesses. So this is a relatively safe position as long as the glutes stay anchored on the bench. Now, the problems that we run into are, one, if you lift your ass off of the bench, now you're getting a change in position of the spine under load, and that's where you can get some of that shear force. Or if she didn't have this nice natural curve through her whole entire spine, and flatten your ribs out here and only arch your lower back. It's gonna be tough for you because you're not used to that. You have a good, decent arch, so tilt your pelvis. There you go. So she's only hinging in one spot, in that kind of lower back area. Go and relax here. And that can be a very, very uncomfortable position when you're only getting that shear in one area. So what we're looking for in a bench press arch, go ahead and arch up for me, is a nice global curve from the upper back all the way to the tailbone. And you see that C shape, and that's what she gets here. And it's actually with the glutes anchored to the bench. And this is actually where we think that, you know, putting our shoulders on a Bosu ball or something and having our glutes suspended in the air is actually safer. In some cases it's not, because we lose that anchor to the bench, and then people's pelvis are floating everywhere and they don't know how to control that, and they get shear in their lower back. So this is a very safe position. We're anchored at the glutes, we're anchored at the shoulders. Going back to how the arch benefits our shoulders, if we don't have that position, if we're just neutral, we have a lot of play here in the scapula. That may be great for more sport-specific things where we need that type of variability, but in a bench press, we want to be anchored, because if our shoulder blade is flopping all over the place, not only is that less stable and a less strong position, it's also an unsafe position, because as we go to bench press, if our shoulder pops off here, that's where we get that anterior impingement feeling, right? And so we want that big upper back arch to pin those shoulder blades back and in position, and we use the bench as an anchor. So the arch is actually helping to anchor our shoulders, so that then when we bench, go ahead and hit a couple reps here, the only motion that's happening is from the upper arm and not from the shoulder blade flopping all over the place. Go ahead and rack it. So those are the goods and the bads of a bench press arch. Hopefully that dispelled some myths and makes sense to you guys.
So now that we've gotten that great insight from Dr. Quinn Hannock, a clinical athlete, we're going to take a look at these points from Dr. Mike Israetel, PhD in sport physiology from Renaissance Periodization. And Dr. Mike is making some great points here about the positioning of the lumbar discs and how lordotic position is actually safer for them than extended position, and why you don't need to be panicked that you may incur a back injury, unless you're going into extreme arch. Because of course, there is a limit to what's going to be safe for people, and there's a good way to arch and a bad way to arch, as Quinn explained in the earlier video. I want to make sure you guys pay special attention to point number 4 here, as he's talking about the development of the chest muscles and the activation of the chest muscles, that getting this scapular retracted and depressed position is actually going to allow you to use a greater amount of fibers, even though it is a shortened range of motion. That higher weight that you're going to be able to use, plus it being safer for the shoulder, is going to negate any development advantage to a flat-backed position. And of course, the point he's making here, that even if you are worried about the forces in your back for the bench, they're insignificant compared to the squat or overhead press. So now that we've gotten all that great scientific technical info from Dr. Mike and Dr. Quinn, let's look at the third argument or comment that a lot of people will make, is that arching in the bench press is cheating. All right? Well, the people who you see arching in the bench press are competitive powerlifters. Their sport is to lift the most weight possible. All right? So it would be foolish of them to not take full advantage of the rules to do that. All right? And if the rules are your shoulders and butt must remain in contact with the bench throughout the completion of the lift, then even the most extreme arches are satisfying those rules. So certainly, is it impressive to see a really heavy flat back bench like this 670 bench from Al Davis? Of course that's impressive, all right? But there's no bonus points for benching with a flat back. when someone hits a bench like that, the judges aren't saying, give this guy 15 extra bonus points because he didn't arch. All right, some people obviously aren't capable of arching, and some people will just choose not to do it. All right, for whatever reason. But that's gonna, if you're capable of getting some arch, and that's could help you bench more, and you're not doing that, you're gonna make a mistake. Because even as impressive as that bench is from Al Davis, and he's doing it flat back, if Kirill Sergachev is up next and he comes up and benches 700 pounds with an arch, guess what? Kirill wins. All right. So put aside the idea that it's cheating. It's cheating to maximize your competitive advantage through a technique that's within the rules. So if you are so steadfast in wanting to do that and bench with a flat back, don't be surprised when you go to a meet and get beat. All right. So those are some ideas about arching in the bench press from real experts: high-level competitor and coach, physical therapist, PhD in sport physiology. So next time you're thinking, you're looking at an Instagram video and thinking, hey, that person's going to break their back, realize that they're not going to. It's lacking the axial loading and shearing forces to do that to their back. All right, it's not cheating, it's their sport, and they're still going to maximize their chest development. So just save your comments. The girl whose video you're commenting on isn't going to want to go on a date with you because you corrected her form, and it's just a part of the sport, and it's totally safe for them to do as long as that arch is being done properly. So hopefully you guys got some new insight to arching in the bench press, and I'll see you next time.